But actually, it was a good kind of blessing in disguise because I got accepted to the Masters of Architecture program at Cal Poly Pomona. So I spent 3 years there and graduated in 2013 at Cal Poly Pomona with my Master's in Architecture. So I have both an interiors and an architecture degree. And then I worked at LPA, which is in Irvine, which is coming from a small firm at Bexon to a firm of 500 plus people in Irvine. It's a big kind of culture change. But we're able to do a lot more larger projects, larger scale projects. So my main client at LPA was Blizzard, which is a video game company in Irvine Spectrum. So in 3.5 years of me working at LPA, we probably did 30 plus Blizzard buildings because it was kind of like a big college campus, and they were moving staff and employers all over from different offices. When one office would shut down or this office would grow, then they would want to move to this office. So it's kind of like a domino effect of different corporate offices that we were designing, and they wanted it to be fast-paced. So we're talking about projects that were due as little as 4 weeks to some that were due, like in a 6-month period. So we had to be fast and well-equipped to know what we're doing because they just wanted to haul people in and out, and then so I was there for 3 years, and I started teaching part-time at Mount San Antonio College in Walnut. My former professor, Elizabeth Eatman, she kind of contacted me while I was in my final year at Cal Poly saying if I wanted to teach a beginning interior design course. And I said, no, I don't want to be a teacher. I want to graduate. I want to, open up my own firm. And then she kind of showed me, how much money I would make as a part-time faculty at a community college. And I said, okay, I'll do it. Because at that time, I kind of needed the money to, help pay back my expenses from college. So for me, it was just a yes for the monetary purposes. And then I taught for 1 year, and they kept asking me back because it was a nice kind of transition. And then in 2016, that's when Dorothy Otoya, who's a professor here, contacted me and saying, hey, I know you're working at the firm and teaching part-time. We have a position open here for a tenure track. You should consider applying. And then again, I said, no, I'm not going to be interested in that. But my wife, who's my girlfriend at the time, said, you should apply, just try it. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So in 2016, I was one of 3 finalists, and I got accepted for the full-time position here. And I've been here for 7 years. I love it. I teach a variety of classes from, like Intro to Design 230, which is our advanced rendering class. And then currently right now I'm teaching the senior studio thesis 441 and 440, which is pro practice. And I'm teaching 244, which is our lighting design class. So that's a little bit of spiel about me. So I know what it's like to be in your shoes because I am a graduate of this program.
Next we have our resident Dodgers fan. We are lucky to get him here on a night when there is a game.
Game's over.
Oh, it's over. Oh, that's 10-0. All right. Okay, so Ed Perez, everybody.
Hey guys, been here since '07. Gonna go back on the clock a little bit because those of you guys that have had me know that there's like a lot of madness in here, and I'm gonna give you guys a reason as to why. I was an avid skateboarder and BMXer, and I fell quite a few times. And maybe there's Abby's like smiling at me over there because she knows the stories and whatnot. I grew up as that kid that would take apart the TV set, the toaster. Forever curious, I was building in the backyard in the tree house, and I and my friends fell out of them and whatnot, and then ultimately we advanced into creating skateboard ramps. And I don't know if you guys know the original Dogtown and Z-Boys of the 1970s and 80s. My friend around the block, we built a half pipe, and Shogo Kubo, came on out, who was a big time original Dogtowner. He kind of came on out there, and that was the first thing that ever got published. So I got a skateboard ramp, a half pipe that got published back in I was born in '66, this is probably like 1979, so I was 13 years old. Beat me on that one, guys. I got my first project published, and it was a half pipe. That type of mentality, that kind of adventure, that kind of leaning on the edges is the way that I am still in life. Sorry for my wife, because she's got to deal with this hot mess day in and day out. but it's the energies that drive me. I am ADD, I am dyslexic, I have learned how to hyper-focus through all these things, and it's allowed me to have a pretty amazing professional and academic career. And for all of you guys that everyone talking about anything like that, please come to me, because I will let you know that there are solutions. And for me, it was great coaching that I had in baseball. That was my sport. I was a walk-on at Harvard College as a baseball player, played 1 year there, took civil engineering and architecture, didn't know exactly which one I wanted to go into. Architecture was ultimately my road, my path. But if it wasn't for my second dad, Dr. Osamu Wakita at Harvard College, I would not be here. That man took all of this and molded and shaped me and flat out kicked my ass the way that I needed to be kicked. And he set a rigor and a passion and a fire that burns to this day. And I use that. I use little fractions of my mentors, whether they were baseball coaches, instructors like Dr. Wakita. Lisa was my instructor at SciArc, and she was a very young instructor at that time. I get older, she gets younger. I took an industrial design course in graduate school at SciArc with Lisa. And not because she's here, but she knows it was one of my most phenomenal courses that I ever took. So thank you for that, because that allowed me to see things from a completely different design lens and profession. One that paralleled what I did as an architect, but also went in a different tangent. So I thank you for that very much. And that's pretty amazing. I went to Harvard College, so did that, went to Cal Poly Pomona, got my degree in architecture there as an undergrad. Worked for a year like crazy to pay off some bills, like many of you guys are going to do in the near future. And then I applied back to graduate school. Applied to the AA in London, got in there. I got into UCLA, got into USC for my second time. I'm a big Fight On fan. Both times that I got accepted as an undergrad, the program wasn't right for me. I wanted the letters of acceptance, and I have both of those. Okay, and that's ultimately SciArc was for me. So SciArc was the think tank that I needed. It was a place where I can take all of my curiosities, all of my energies. I paralleled a really sound education that I got at Cal Poly, but one that I felt was still a little bit conservative for who I was. SciArc was a place where it's like, no, I'm going to let it all loose. It's where I can turn up Zeppelin, Chili Peppers, whoever it was, and let that just kind of continue on my path. And that's kind of who I am. That's how I teach. I teach very rigorous studios, but very fun studios in my opinion. So you get a lot of madness, no doubt, but there is a logic set behind that. And like I said, I am a little bit all over the place, but trust me, I hyper-focus and I get things done. I'm very, very good at the things that I love. And I do get bored very easily. So if I don't love it, butterflies, I'm going to look at the butterfly and I'm going to take off. But other than that, I love being here since '07. Come on over, talk to the madness, take one of my classes. The grass is always greener. I love what these gentlemen and lady do in industrial design, but you know, my world is architecture 100%, and I'm here for all of you guys. And if you just want to chat, even though you don't take me, Design 127, that's my office. I keep my door closed a lot because that dang room across the way, that's the classroom, is it 121? I forget the,
25.
which one is it?
125.
125. We get non-design students, and I cannot stand what they're talking about in the hallways. It drives me bonkers, so my door's typically closed. But I'm there a lot. I'm here Monday through Thursday, so please come and bug me. I love all things design. I don't care if I'm holding it in my hand or if I'm walking through it. Good design is good design, so thank you for having me.
Thanks, Ed. Now we're on to basically my instructing mentor, the gentleman that drew me in and said, hey, you want to teach a class here? Dave Tubman.
Yes, I'm Dave Tubman. My college experience starts at Orange Coast College. Maybe that's also true for you guys. I changed my major 3 times when I was there. My first major was ornamental horticulture. Why? That's where the dart landed. My second major was filmmaking. I actually never finished ornamental horticulture. It's hard to say because I just sort of lost interest in it. It wasn't for me. Then I discovered that they had a filmmaking degree, and so I switched over to filmmaking, and that was a lot of fun. And I did finish that one. But then I realized that the film industry was, kind of really tough to get into, so I thought I'd better back it up with something a little bit more reliable. And so I changed over to graphic design. And then I came up here, I transferred up here, and I had to make a decision. I didn't know whether I would continue in graphic design or go over to interior design, because I actually considered it. I did. It was a tough decision. And then the thing that helped me make the decision was there was a copy of the Daily 49er, and the cover story was about Star Wars, and it was about all the people who had helped design the spaceships and do the special effects. And I read the article, and it turned out that they were all from the industrial design program. And I went, okay, that's what I'm going to major in. And I have no regrets. It's been just a blast. Knowing that, practicing that. I also sort of minored. I didn't, not officially, but I took a lot of classes in theater design at the same time. My first job I got before I graduated, and that was because I was in the right place at the right time. A guy came into the department and was asking Herb, who was the head of the department at the time, if there was if there was anyone around who could draw airplanes and tanks. And turned out he was from an animation studio that was in town. And Herb said, that guy. And he said, and that's how I got my first job, which was at an animation studio. I think the other reason why I got it was because Herb knew that I had an interest in and a background in filmmaking as well. And so that was really cool. The only film that I ever drew airplanes and tanks for was the first one. And then after that, I spent years animating Calculating Kangaroo. Because it was all educational films. But it was a blast. It was a lot of fun. When that ended, I went to my first marketing firm where I did graphic design and illustration. Then when that ended, I went on to work at Parker Hannifin Aerospace, where I was a videographer. And then after that ended, I went on to my next marketing firm where I did more illustration and more graphic design. And then after that ended, well, all that time also I was doing freelance work. I was always on the fringe of the film industry, doing set design, prop design, storyboards, all that kind of stuff. I say it was the fringe because I never worked on a studio film, but those who know, there's actually two Hollywoods. There's Studio Hollywood and there's Independent Hollywood. So I worked a lot with the independent filmmakers, and they're much nicer people. Then, let's see. Then on a whim, I called up my old professor one day. This is 12 years after I graduated. And I said, hey, you know what? I think I'd like to teach a class sometime. You know, if you've got one, just, let me know. And he said, okay, I'll let you know. And then we hung up, and I didn't think I was going to hear anything back. Called me back in a half hour and said, I got a biz class. You want to teach it? And that's where it started. And so I was hired on as a drawing teacher. It was a lot of fun. And then one thing led to another. And next thing you know, I was, basically working here full time. And I decided to make it official in the early 2000s. So we had to take over the program, and that's when I became one of the co-coordinators. And I guess that brings us up to
Down here on this end, we have John Kleinpeter, who is actually known in and out of Cal State.
So I met Dave. Dave asked me about my interest in teaching. I was also teaching on other campuses. At one point I was teaching 5 classes on 4 different campuses. So I was what they call a freeway flyer at the time. And I started here as a part-time lecturer, then I got hired as a full-time lecturer, then I got hired as a tenure track faculty, and I have gone through the system now. I've been here since 2006, and I teach the environmental communication design classes now. I've taught some other classes too, but basically that's graphic design in the built environment, if you want to know what that is. We can't say graphic design in this building. So anyway, that's what it is. And if you have any interest in sort of broadening your skills outside of one specific focus, you might enjoy taking class in the BA program. It is more generalized than the other programs, so we have students who do all kinds of different things, so feel free to connect with me and we'll see.
Awesome, thank you. So what other profession than your own, and you can categorize that however you like, whether that's instructor, designer, both, what other profession would you like to try if you had the opportunity?
Am I going first?
You're going
Okay.
first.
It's interesting for me because I have two. I think when I was younger, I had an interest in architecture, so I could have been an architect.
Still can be.
Still can be. That's right. You can go back to school at any age. So I had an interest in architecture, and that was fascinating to me. I used to build model homes as a kid. I enjoyed doing that and drawing. I still remember the first time I saw a swimming pool on the second floor of a building, and I thought, oh, they stole my idea. So that's a point of interest for me, is architecture. I still love architecture today, but I'm really more of a fan, an external fan. I like seeing how the architects detail their buildings, and those things are fascinating to me in terms of capturing imagery based on architecture. And I enjoy travel today as a result of that. And so one of the things I do is travel and take pictures of buildings. But the other profession is the legal profession. I have an interest in it because it's somewhat technical in a sense, in the way that it operates. It's very rule-oriented, very policy-oriented, and it's kind of, the way it's organized, it's kind of predictable. It just seems to coincide with the way I think and the way my personality is. So if you had one of my classes, you know I'm a really very organized person. So I think those are the two professions for me, architecture and law. Those would be.
I would not have pinned that, but as you explained it, I totally get it. Dave, how about yourself?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is I honestly think that I've tried my hand at almost everything I was ever interested in.
That's awesome.
And I was good at some of them, and I wasn't so good at some of them. And there were some that I ended up liking, and then there were some that once I got involved with it, I went, oh, this is not what I thought it was. So I've been a cartoon illustrator. I've been a graphic designer. I've done industrial design. I've done concept design. I've built props for movies. I've made movies. I've been a videographer. These are all the things that I always wanted to do. So I've done a lot of writing. I would say I have to maybe agree with John on 50% of his choices. I do have I don't want to be a lawyer. I have no interest in that at all. But you know, what's really neat is like, I think that's true of all of us creatives. Yeah, I do. I also have a fascination with architecture in every way, and I love buildings, and particularly going back in history. I mean, all the way back in history. So, which also sort of aligns with an interest in archaeology and digging up the past and things like that. So I think that if there was something that would be fun, it would either be being an architect, or if not being an architect, studying the history of architecture, because that fascinates that kind of. And I just do that on my own time. So.
It's interesting, our guest last week said archaeology for that very same reason.
Yeah.
It's kind of digging up what we as a society created in the past. It's kind of looking at our future and thinking, what will others dig up?
Mm-hmm.
So, Ed, what would you do?
The obvious one, baseball player, but that's for you. But that would be the obvious one. I think for me, honestly, it's a little bit different because when I have students ask me, it's like, what motivates you? Honestly, it's my family. I dig my family. I love my wife, my kids, and kind of their pursuits. But they're all little fractions of who I am, once again. And for me, really kind of what motivates me when I design, it's music, it's film, it's travel. So somehow between Stevie Ray Vaughan, Tupac, Anthony Bourdain, you know, Tony Alva skateboarder, somewhere in that mix is kind of where I draw my energies from. You know, it's like, I think Ernest Hemingway, I'm a huge Hemingway fan. I love to read. And Hemingway, once again, a traveler. You know, so it's about these people that can take these journeys, and the romance of the light on the table may not mean a lot. That's a moment that is yours, and you own that. So it's about going out and experiencing things with a lot of people, but also solitary moments. And I think the mixture of these people that motivate me, somewhere within that realm, if that makes any kind of sense. That's kind of what it would be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Bit of a vagabond creative.
Yeah, that's a good word. Vagabond.
It's better than bump, right?
I love you, Max.
Vaughn, what would you do?
Well, when I was a kid, I used to draw a lot, more so like cartoon characters. So my kind of dream job when I was a kid was to be an animator, specifically for like the Walt Disney Company, things like that. So I drew a lot of like Disney characters, like Pokemon, but I kind of drew it just for the fun of it. I wasn't that detailed into, you know, my cousin was also an artist, and when I compared my sketches to his sketches, it was night and day. He's actually a car designer for Subaru right now. I couldn't draw like the organic forms or, you know, like an industrial designer sketch. My sketches were not to that level, but that was kind of like my dream. And I found design through a 132A class here. And it allowed me to still be creative, but kind of be grounded in rules of like right and wrong. Because in design, there's a right and wrong way to do things. Like, for example, in an interior space, we have to learn about codes and things like that to make sure our occupants in our building are safe. And I kind of like that. It allowed me to still be creative in what I can do with an inside space or architecture for that matter, but kind of be grounded by, you know, rules and a set of rules that we can't break, or sometimes we can push it to the limit, but you know, sometimes it slaps us back in the face. So I kind of like that in terms of kind of like the balance of the creativity part, but also the rules and regulations of how we design a space. And I think that's what led me to interiors and architecture eventually.
Awesome.
Animation was the best for me.
Lisa, you've had a lot of careers, so what would you do that's different if you had the opportunity?
You know, that's such a great question, and I haven't ever had anybody ask that, and so thank you. I have always loved architecture, same as most of us. And I've kind of done it, even though I'm not an architect, I've done it at any time anybody would let me, or any time I could afford, you know, renovating anywhere I lived. And this happened for years in rentals, and everybody thought I was crazy for doing capital improvements on rentals. But, you know, landlords didn't mind. And so that was like one way I snuck into architecture a little bit. And, okay, that's number one. Can I have 3 more?
Wow, 3, wow, all right.
All right.
And I will say that your architecture is really good, actually.
Oh my
So
God.
I can vie for that. It's good, so, yeah.
That's so sweet. Well, I do love space planning and massing and, you know, thinking about cardinal direction and what sunlight is doing and how to, really, I'm kind of obsessed with efficiency, and it kind of pervades everything I do. And the older I get, the more I care about it, and the more obsessed I am with it. So anybody that wants to talk about efficiency, you know where to find me. The second one is doctor. Got a lot of doctors in my family, and I love it, and I find it so amazing. Just the human body is such a wonder, and to understand it and to study it and to, you know, anatomy and how all the systems work. I just find biology so fantastic, and it's such a great metaphor for everything. So I'd probably be a doctor if I could.
I offered a job in Florida, and I got offered a job in California. And, so I flew out to California, and it was in February. And where I was from in Dallas, it was frozen and brown and dead. It was cold and wet, nasty. And when I got to Orange County, people were outside in white tennis shorts playing tennis under palm trees in the sun. So it was a no-brainer. I was moving to California. I took my travel money and rented an apartment that weekend before I ever met my boss. So going to the job and going to see my employer was kind of didn't matter. I knew I was going to end up here. But they hired me because they wanted a magazine. They wanted a publication. I should say not a magazine, publication. And they wanted to bring all of their production in-house. They had no experience with a Mac. Macs had just come out. So they bought a Mac, and they bought all the software, and when I got to my job on the first day, they just gave me the manuals and said, here you go. I had no training, had no one to teach me anything, so in about 30 days I had to learn how to use all the software to produce this publication. So I taught myself. I just started with the manuals, and back then, of course, things were quite different. I started before Illustrator existed, for example, or before Photoshop existed. Photoshop was originally an image retouching software for taking dust marks off of scanned images. That's a whole other story. But I know about the software, I know where it came from, I know why it exists. So what that allowed me to do is, as an adult learner, as a self-taught person, it allowed me to understand the software in a really deep way. Then when I married, my wife's sister managed a software training company, and because Macs were coming into the industry, she had been in the PC industry, she didn't have any Mac trainers. So because she met me and she knew I knew all the software, I started doing Mac training. So that was my first experience in teaching other people about any aspect of design. That's where I learned how to teach in a sense. And then, of course, I went to graduate school where I met Dave, and they needed a teacher in the department to teach the software classes. So I got offered the position, and then you know the rest. So that's kind of how I got here. So.
Anybody else? Way back when I was in design school, my instructors were absolutely merciless, and they pushed us all to the breaking point. And much as you have done about me, I cursed them out. And when I graduated and I went out into industry, I was so thankful that they did what they did, because working out in industry was actually sometimes actually easier than anything I ever had to do at school. And I was glad they did it.
For me, I think two things that I take from working professionally that I bring to the classroom are time management and communication. So just like you guys are in school, you have multiple design classes, right? We teach multiple classes. We also have work part-time on the side that we do. And then one of my biggest mentors at LPA told me, you know, every day you're gonna open up your email, there's gonna be like 20 emails, right? This client wants this drawing, this client wants this drawing. There's gonna be like little fires everywhere. And our job as designers is to control those fires and not let them kind of rage into a big inferno. So that's time management. You know, you have to learn how to balance your classes, and you know, you can't put aside one class and not touch it for a week because you're gonna forget everything that they've taught you. Right? If you touch a little bit at a time every day, you'll be fine. Right? So we try to teach our students like how to manage your time better. Like, how do you?
We have an online question from our Zoom group. What advice would you give to a designer who is not sure what they want to focus on? It seems to be a good one for several.
What, everybody, or?
What, any of you can answer, you don't have to read it.
Honestly, if you don't feel the heartbeat, if you don't feel the stimuli somewhere between here and here, in my opinion, don't do it. Don't ever do it. I think you gotta feel it, you gotta know it. And like Lisa was saying, challenge yourself. Don't be afraid. There's gonna be more people in this business that just wanna shut the door on you. Don't shut it down on yourself. I mean, you put your foot through that door, someone does close the door, put your fist through the door. Go through it. But if you're not feeling it, please go do something else. Life is too short to be living in a humdrum world. Go to something that stimulates you, whatever that is, whether it's, you know, we mentioned law, accounting, oh, God bless them. You know, whatever it may be, go do it. You know, if that moves you, do that. You know, I mentor like so many students, like we all do, and I get some students that's like, my God, it's like you have so much inside you, but you really aren't a designer. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong. There's no shame in saying, I appreciate design, I like design, but maybe I'm not a designer. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean to scare anybody off to go do something else, but, you know, kind of putting a flip on it, you know, for those that think they are designers. I mean, it's different. You know, it's like one of my best buddies is a firefighter. He deals with life and death every single day, but he's passionate. He loves, he cannot do anything else. And, you know, God bless him, because he's taking care of all of us, and that's his thing. And that's something I do. You know, and I appreciate that, you know. So find whatever makes you tick, or online person, wherever you are, find whatever makes you tick and go for it, you know, take a
So
spin in
if
that
it's
car.
within the design realm, that would be fine. Whichever realm of design really drives you.
Yeah, and even with that, there's like so many hats to wear in design, as we all know, right? There's managers, right? There's a marketing aspect about it. There are the designers, you know. There's technical people. So there's no one hat fits all. You know, most of us have probably done a little bit of all those different things, and we kind of found our particular strengths and weaknesses, no doubt, you know, with that. So once again, if you know, if you're the student that's trying like crazy and you can't quite achieve that A, but you're trying, trust me, your instructor is going to take note of that. And they're going to say, you know what, you're going to make it. You're going to make it. You may not be the person leading the design team, but you might be leading the office in something else. So once again, if that passion is there, that drive is there, find out what it is for you.
I actually graduated with several designers out of CCS that were amazing car designers. They were just really good at it.
Into our
MBAs.
MBAs, so we have students that are doing furniture design, but they graduated with an interior degree. We have students that are lighting designers, but they have an interior degree. We have one of my colleagues is now a wedding planner. She ditched the firm, but she's using her interior design skills of like, you know, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign to produce weddings, and she makes some really good money out of it. You know, so the skills that you're learning here as a designer can translate to like multiple fields, and that's what I love about our college of design. You can graduate with an industrial degree or a BA degree or an interior degree. you don't have to necessarily work at the interior design firm. You can branch out.
Design process apply to almost anything that I ever want to design. I design jewelry now as a hobby, and I never had any idea that I would be designing jewelry when I was 20-something, when I was your age. I would have never thought about that, but I love it. So I've also done landscape design. I designed and remodeled a home that I live in. So it's quite possible that you can take the design skills that you learn here in this environment and apply them to most anything. They're really useful, and even if it's outside of design, they're useful because the process is the way that you approach a problem and go through a solution process of trial and error and prototyping and testing and making revisions and all those processes that you learn about, you can apply that to your life and you'll be able to do almost anything. So when you're 20-something, you think you have a real grasp on what your life is going to be like, but from this side of the table, that's not really true. You really don't have a grasp on what your life is going to be like. You might have a glimpse, but it could take you in a lot of different directions. So your design skills can be useful for a lot of different things.
But it's like, I know what it is to live off of top ramen, mac and cheese, Jolt Cola back in the day, because that's what I used to keep me up from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., whatever it is, you need to have self-worth, and the people that hire you will respect you for that as well too. So we, at least in our internship program, we don't support any unpaid internships at all. That's just interiors.
I'd also add to that, when you are doing freelancing, don't be afraid to take on something that is beyond what you have experience in. Because you're in school, you don't have a lot of experience. You are gaining that.
Is flat rate, where you lay out how you think you're going to do the problem, how you think you're going to solve the problem. Phase 1 will do this, phase 2 will do that, phase 3 will do that. And you say you're going to get 3 solutions at the first one, and you will refine, you choose, and then you will refine. And you only show them possibilities that you actually like. Don't show them the dogs, because they're going to pick that, and then you're stuck with it. So you really have to kind of steer them into a solution that you, with your wisdom, know is going to be a better solution. Give them a choice within stuff that that you believe would work. So that's flat. So time and materials, flat rate, and the third one is like a retainer, where you say, okay, I'm going to charge you this much every month, and you can ask me to do whatever you need done. And so some months you agree on a price, suppose they, go do some horse trading, or you don't, or they just accept it. But the cool thing about retainer is that some months, you win, because they don't really ask you to do anything, they're busy, or they ask you to do less, and some months they win because they can dump a ton of stuff on you. But overall, the reason I love that is that you just negotiate it once and then you're done. And same thing with time and materials, although there's a lot of sort of accounting, which, did I mention that I would suck as an accountant? So those are 3 paradigms, and maybe there are others. Maybe the third one, the fourth one is you get a commission for each unit sold of the thing that you're designing, and maybe no design fee or a small design fee. So there's a lot of stuff to think about, and I found that every project mushroom clouded, like every project turned into 5 projects, and so the flat rate was very confusing for everybody, and the clients didn't like, they got sticker shock when they asked you to do extra stuff and then they had to pay for it. So I kind of like the idea of the retainer, if you can, get that kind of arrangement, because
Access to people that you may not realize. And I would say the first thing is realize those people and network with them. You don't even, nowadays, you don't have to join a club. It's all online. You can network with people, find those that are, you admire or have taught you something, be of service to them, and they will, when you're first in mind for these people, you're who they call. Just like if you're somebody who does, I'm not saying suck up to a professor or, anything like that. Do the extra work, be there.
I would say that there is more than one approach to getting your first job. And you might discover, surprisingly, that one is more effective than you thought. These days, you can look for jobs online, you can apply. And, there might be one job and 100,000 applicants, so you could try that method. I always thought of it that it's who you know that will open the door for you. It's what you know that will keep you on the inside. If you get on the inside, the rest is up to you. You got to produce. You have to be the person that they need you to be. So I would say networking, talking to the people that you know that are close to you, and you can join organizations. You can, like we have SULB the VA students all get free memberships to. And there's an LA chapter, an Orange County chapter, there's a San Diego chapter, there's chapters in all 50 states, there's chapters in other countries, it's an international organization. And if you start going to those meetings, you'll find out about job opportunities, you'll find out about projects, right? You'll find out about the latest things that are happening in the industry. And you just start talking to people and meeting people, and expand your circle. Expand. Don't rely on sort of the network that you get by default, like the person sitting next to you, but meet new people. Meet people that you've never met before. And then you'll eventually find something. It'll happen. So, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to take. I always call it a tent making job. But don't be afraid to take a day job, right? Do something that may not satisfy you very much. But don't be afraid to do something to pay the bills while you're still out there looking, trying to find your way in design. You'd be surprised what happens along the way.
I only ever got one job from sending in my resume in answer to mail. And I didn't get it right away. It was put in a file. I found this out after. And then one day when they were desperate, they pulled that stack of resumes out of the file, and they just started with the top one, and they started calling. And guess who was at home? And they called. And they knew me. They knew what I was capable of. They knew that they could rely on me. And that's why I got the job.
And do speculative projects. Do as many speculative projects as you can afford to do. Because, those are how you gain notoriety and daring work.
I follow all these guys, they follow me and stuff like that. We see family and friends. We see our having a good time, off the clock. Everybody has a life. But on LinkedIn, it's business. So, build up that professional resume, but be very, very cautious with things that you're posting. And do the same things that I tell my kids. My kids are your guys' age. Just got to be cautious with that. It's a different time from when we grew up.
And something I'd like to add is I don't think you all realize what an amazing resource you have right here. We are all invested in your success. We want you to succeed. It's what makes us happy. And so this is where your network starts, is with us. My very first design, I had 2 industrial